Hey guys, Lady Locks here, and I have got the Schlage Everest inside of an Abus. What is this? An 8345 lock body. This does not have a key. This was given to me by Skookumdanger. It doesn't have a key, but I'm gonna go ahead and pick it open, and then we can take a look at what's inside. With the Everest, you can tell that it's an Everest because it will have a little mountain, little triangle right here. That stands for Everest. That's like the little Everest mountain. If it's a Primus, it'll say Primus across here. Everest Primus will have it'll say Primus and have an Everest somewhere on it as well. But basically, to pick this one, you just pick it like a regular Schlage, and then when you're all done, you just have to push up this little pin down inside this, down at the bottom of the core there. And I'll show you guys where that's located when I got it. But yeah, that's about it. Just pushing one extra pin whenever you're done picking these, regular drivers. And that's it. This one actually has some good spring action. It's crazy. These pins have some tight springs, strong springs I should say. But yeah, so basically just going back and picking whatever is binding, and then I should get a bit of core rotation once everything is in its place, and then just gotta hit that little side pin and we'll be done. So some of these Schlage cores can be a real pain in the butt to pick. Well, they should all just be basically standard pins. I've seen people pin up their Primuses with, their Everest with, all spools or all serrated. So you can do that if you'd like. I think it would be fun to try it with all spools. So maybe I'll repin this one with all spools and see how it picks. I have picked the all serrated Schlages, but not the Everest. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a try and see how that feels to pick it. It's probably a little easier with spools, I would think, just so that you get some nice feedback. And there was a little bit of core rotation I was looking for. And now the only thing that's holding me up is that pin here. And I'm just going to take this little flag that I made. I actually made this one to pick my Primus. But I'm going to take this little flag and stick it right down here at the very bottom of the keyway. And slide it in until I feel a little spot here. And then I'm going to go ahead and push up on that. That's going to be that pin. And there you have it. So yeah, now that that is done, I'll go ahead and get some things. We can gut this and see what's inside of it. I really am enjoying this really beautiful Abus. It's an 8345. The lock body, you can interchange different cores inside of here. I really love this. I think this is gorgeous. And I'm very excited to have this so that I can put different locks inside. Very cool, very cool. Anyways, okay, let me get my stuff to gut it and we'll see what's inside, and I will give you a closer look at that little side pin, and try to show you how to locate it inside of the core there. Stay tuned. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take the screw out of here. This screw holds the core into the lock body, so you got to get that out first. Sometimes it'll have Loctite on it. That could be annoying. You can see a little bit remaining on this screw. But alright, and then you've got this little thing here that this slides on in order, and then that's what holds it in with the screw there. Holds it into the lock body, so definitely got to get that. Alright, and then there's this little piece here on the back. Always make sure you put this back on the lock when you're done, because this is what allows you to actually pop the shackle open when it's inside the lock. So when you're taking that off, you want to make sure that you remember to put that back on, because if you put this back together without it and put that back in your lock, you will not be able to get your lock open again, the shackle at least. All right, and there's a little button on here. I'm going to try to, let me see there, right here, that you've got to depress in order to remove this piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and push that in. There is a, I believe there's a plug follower or something. There's something that actually works to push that button in and remove this without having to actually do it yourself, but I don't have one of those. So taking that all off, there's going to be a little kind of like a pin and a spring in there, so that's got to come out. And I always mark the front of my lock, because these ones are kind of, sometimes they actually, the angle of this is actually the same in the front as it is in the back, so sometimes you can get confused you know, on which end is the front end if you're not paying attention. So I always just mark mine with Sharpie the first chance I get, so that I always know where the front is. With this one I don't need a shim, so I'm not going to use a shim. But you do need to remember that there is a gap there, and you don't want that underneath your drivers, or they'll all come flying out. And with this I've got to be careful, because there's also that little pin in there. So I'm just going to gently push this through with my plug follower here, and try to get a hold of that little pin down in the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and dump these out and show you, and then I can actually show you how to where that pin is, and show you a little more about that pin that's in this lock. Oops. Pin over. There we go. Okay. All right. So here's the pin that I'm talking about inside the core there. There it is right there. You can see it's actually going to be pressed into this part. There's a little spot here, and this pin actually gets stuck in there. So that's usually the very last thing you have to pick. I guess depending on which way you pick the lock clockwise, it ended up being the very last pin I had to pick on this lock. And so it will come down and it will sit right in that little spot. And there's a tab on this that you're going to push upwards with your pick. I'm going to go ahead and show you with my pick here if I can hold it right. So I'm going to hold it like this. So if you're going into the lock, let's see if I can get a focus. There we go. So you're going to take your pick into the lock, slide it all the way down, and then you're just going to find this little pin and you're going to push it upwards with your pick, releasing it from that hole in the lock body there. And then it will release the cord to turn. So that's basically all you have to do with this. So if you look through here, it's pretty far back in there. Okay, and you're going to, depending on if you pick with, this side at the top or the bottom. I usually keep this at the bottom. So I'm going to slide my pick in, bump that up. It pulls it out of this little hole here and releases the cord to turn. So I'm just going to dump that out, and there's a pin inside there, or I'm sorry, a little spring inside there as well. These springs are vicious. They're tiny and they look unassuming, but they will fly out if you even look at them wrong. So just be careful that you don't lose that when you're gutting this lock. Alright, and I'm only going to pull out one spring out of this core just to show you, because they are crazy tough springs. Take a look at that spring. That thing's insane. It's really hard to depress those springs in this one. But as you can see, that's just the standard pin. This whole thing is full of standard pins. Look how far they spring out if you're not careful. That's how hard those springs are working in there. So yeah, it's just full of standards. 1, 2, 3. Come to the back here. And make it 6. Five. Well, and 4. There we are. Okay, so now you see pretty much all standard pins, all standard key pins, all standard driver pins. And the only thing that's going to be difficult or any bit of a challenge is that tiny little pin on the side, which I showed you how to get that picked. And like I said, depending which way you're turning this lock, it could be first that you have to pick that. It could be last that you have to pick that. Now, when you're putting it back together, I guess I would put the key pins back first, just because it's easier to hold this than it is to hold that other pin in. Alright, so for this, like I said, it's easier to just put my finger on here and then add this spring. I'm going to add the spring first, and then you're going to put this pin in with that little part facing out, you know, put that little tab facing in, you know, the front here, or the middle of the core, I guess you would say. So you just have to be careful when you're putting it back together that you put your finger on there and hold it, you know, and it's a little tough because you have to make sure you're holding on to that, but you're not letting these key pins drop, and you're not putting them in straight up and down like this. You want to have it angled so that they are not in the way, you know, when you're sliding through. So just make sure you do it that. Alright, and I got that little pin inside of there. And turn it back to closed. Alright. And now we're going to add this spring back here, right into that little hole where it came out of, and this pin here. And then you're going to place this on the back. There's 2 little cutouts on this, as you can see, one on each side there. So you're just going to put one of those cutouts around that pin, like so. And then you're just going to need something to hold this pin down, of course, again, which this is my worst part, is holding this pin down while I try to put this back together. So it might take a second here. If so, I apologize. I always have it pop right back up on me. I always lose it somehow. So I have a little bit of a hard time with it. Alright. And you see, if you accidentally slip off the pin, you always just find it again. And now just turn your core so that pin's popped up. That's all together. Okay, that's back in place. Now we're going to put this back on. The screw end is always in the back of the lock so that you can screw it right back into the core here. And now what I'm going to do is, since I have to pick this open to get it open, I'm going to have to pick it again, but I always check your padlock. Don't put this last screw in here until you make sure that everything is back together correctly. So if you would have made a mistake and that little piece at the end was in the wrong spot, or you forgot to put it on there, if you use the key and try to open it, the shackle wouldn't pop. So you want to make sure that you can get that shackle to pop before you put the screw in, because if it, you know, at the very least I can pop this out, manually pop the shackle, do what I had to do, and try again. But if you put that screw in there, you cannot do that, and you're stuck. So you'll have this stuck and it won't open your padlock anymore. So always double check before you put this screw in. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and put it back in the vise and try to pick it again, making sure the shackle actually works. If it does, I will put the final screw in and I will be done, you know, putting this back together. But that is pretty much how you do it. This is a lot of fun, this lock. It looks it sounds and looks more intimidating than it actually is to pick. It is just a standard pin, and then you just pop that little pin in the back and it comes open. So it's not that bad. I suggest you try one. They're a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm going to probably put some spools in mine, so you can always do that and put different pins in it, make it a little more challenging, pin it up however you'd like, so that's it. And that is the Schlage Everest. Alright, thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you like my channel, please subscribe, and take it easy, everybody.